I started following Dan Lust at Sports Law Lust on Twitter and started to notice what he covered. He's also a part of a podcast, Con Detrimental, and that's on Twitter as well, but also elsewhere. He's been on ESPN, CBS, Fox, etc., New York Law School professor, and he joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. So thanks, man. Appreciate you being a part of the show as always on Sports Law. And I love people. I have a couple of questions I was asked to get your way as well today, which we will. But so what's going to happen with Congress, the Washington football team, and the NFL? How's this going to turn out?
So, first of all, always a pleasure to join you guys. I think, when you hear this stink for these emails, right, there's 650,000 emails stemming from this Washington football team investigation. I think one note, which I don't know if everybody saw, I was under the impression initially that these 650,000 emails belonged to multiple employees across the organization. There was a report that these emails are essentially emails that were either sent to or from Bruce Allen, the former president and general manager of Washington football team. So, put another way, they only looked at one guy's emails. So keep that in mind. But yeah, I mean, at a larger level, I'm seeing the public outcries for these emails to be released, and I've gone on a number of shows. David, you mentioned I go across the country, and I said the NFL is not obligated to give out these emails. Right? They're a private entity. They do not answer to fans, calling for the release of the emails, but they do, to some extent, have to answer to the federal government, right? Just like we saw years ago. People remember when baseball was put on Capitol Hill with the steroid trial, or even, the research into the concussion protocol in the NFL. The leagues have to answer to the government. There's certainly ramifications for not doing that. But yeah, how I think this is going to play out, I think, there's a chance that we get someone like Roger Goodell speaking on Capitol Hill and speaking on, in front of a live and captive audience, which he does not normally do. And that might force the NFL's hand to some extent.
Dan, we've also heard reports that there is no written report on the Washington football team investigation, that the findings were handed down. Now, we kind of have some experience with this in Waco, and that was the Pepper Hamilton didn't have a fully written report as far as everything that went on. For people who aren't familiar with this, why would there not be a written report, or is that just one of those things you say so that they can't subpoena one?
I guess a little bit of background. I could talk about this case for probably an hour, but I'll kind of condense it very tightly here. This was an investigation that occurred over the course of a year of Washington football team. Sexual harassment issues involving the owner, Dan Snyder, toxic workplace, some really messy allegations. That was an institutional alleged failure. So Washington brought in their own law firm. They got to pick who they chose. And the NFL could have said, don't use that firm. They allowed Washington to pick this firm. So for a year, right, a law firm is billing God knows how many hours, spending, I'm sure at least six figures in terms of legal fees. And for there not to be a final written product is a little strange. You ask me why they wouldn't want a written report. It's, transparency. They don't want this thing leaking. They don't want their owner, Dan Snyder, to be kind of put on blast. I'm sure the law firm was ready, willing, and able to write a written report. That's what we do as lawyers. We write reports. We write periodic status updates, right? Every couple months, or maybe every 90 days. But for there to be no paper trail for 365 days of work, right? Probably hundreds of thousands of hours billed. I think it's fair to say it's a red flag that they didn't want a written report, so no one could see what Snyder did wrong. So we don't have any knowledge as to what they found. All we know is that Dan Snyder was fined $10 million for a billionaire. That's the equivalent of a slap on the wrist. And, we don't have any report, right? Deflategate with Tom Brady, we had a 200-page report, the Mitchell report in Major League Baseball once upon a time with all the different steroid offenders, huge report, and nothing here. So certainly a red flag and not necessarily par for the course.
So, Dan, what is if you're a Washington football team fan wondering like when this comes to a close or what have you, what's sort of the next step, if any, as far as this goes and Daniel Snyder and all of that?
I mean, I think, and I remember talking about this a year ago. I said these allegations are really bad. I mean, it goes up and down, right? So I would think this would be something that would get him in more trouble than a slap on the wrist, but it did not, right? They didn't lose draft picks. They didn't lose anything like that. He wasn't, kind of forced by the NFL to sell the team as what occurred with Jerry Richardson, owner of the Carolina Panthers once upon a time. NFL doesn't want to do that with Snyder. So, yeah, I hate to say it, but I don't think there is a world where the NFL wants to force Snyder out. I think, unless there's some crazy emails that we don't know about, like what happened with John Gruden. But I think, next phase of this, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure applied by the U.S. government to figure out what happened in that investigation. So certainly there was an oral report given by the law firm to Washington football team. Maybe they'll call that lawyer up and ask her to speak about exactly what they found during that investigation. And there was a comment from the House Oversight Committee that Washington football team has to be, aware of discrimination in the workplace, right? You should be able to speak to that and promote what you did if you really did conduct a thorough investigation.
From Chris in the chat room, Dan Lust is really good. I love the segment they did with him a month ago. We got a lot of great feedback. Here's a question from the website from Surf Oso. With all these NIL deals for these kids, what are the IRS implications of accepting them, both athlete and sponsored? Not really caring about $300 for an athlete to promote a local pizza joint, but the big ones like Alabama, the quarterback there, Rattler, and Kentucky player driving a Porsche.
I guess it's going to be state specific to some extent. I don't profess to necessarily be a tax expert, but I do know that this issue is still being hammered out. I do know that there are people that are pleading for a federal name, image, and likeness bill to kind of have some clarity on that ground. I think an interesting one, it's not necessarily what you guys asked, but I'm looking over at the Spencer Rattler situation for anyone following college football. The guy signed a ton of deals, right? I'm not sure the exact equivalent, but I think mid to high six figures is fair. And the guy might be out of a job, right, at Oklahoma. So, from a legal standpoint, what I'm looking for is if any businesses try to find a way to get out of these deals, right? Frustration of purpose. Like we saw during the pandemic, people used force majeure to get out of deals. We're not going to see force majeure, but frustration of purpose is, I think a reasonable tactic to try to get out of the deal. And we'll see if it comes to fruition. Some business is going to try it despite the bad PR with the amount of money they were shelling out. So we'll see. We'll see if it comes there.
Dan, was reading some of your tweets about Deshaun Watson the other day. He has not been suspended by the league, and the assumption, I guess, is that Roger Goodell hasn't felt the need to suspend him because he told the Texans he's not going to play for them. The Texans have obliged to the request of not trying to even make him play, or do anything like that. And they were headed down this road before all of the allegations came up. But say he is traded to the Dolphins here in the coming week, and the Dolphins make him active and try to play him, and then the NFL suspends him. That seems to be a little upside down, that he wouldn't have just been suspended in the first place because, again, the grand jury hearing on this is not until after the Super Bowl, so it's still going to be out there until next season, no matter what.
Yeah, the civil case is going to keep going because they set depositions after the Super Bowl. So the case itself is going to keep going on the civil end. The grand jury indictment, they've had this report that's gone out. That might occur, in the next month, 6 weeks. That's certainly possible for criminal charges. But I'm with you. I find it very odd that the catalyst to put Deshaun Watson or take him off the field would be a trade when the civil allegations really haven't changed in a couple months. But that's the sense I'm hearing, right? That the reason that that Roger Goodell did not necessarily punish, or I'm going to say punish, but take him off the field on this commissioner's exempt list is because the Texans maybe gave him word that they weren't going to be playing him. So if they weren't going to play him, right, why does Roger Goodell need to go out and make a statement and put him on the commissioner's exempt list? So, but I think optically it sends the wrong message that, hey, they're going to trade him to a team that wants to play him, and now we're going to take him off the field. I don't necessarily think that's fair to any team that trades for him, be it the Philadelphia Eagles, Miami Dolphins. And I don't really necessarily think it's fair to the Houston Texans that they've been kept in the dark this whole time. So, yeah, I do find it odd. Again, the allegations haven't really changed since they came out. We know what they are. They're not good, but they are civil allegations. So, for Watson's purposes, if you haven't punished him yet, why would you punish him now? I don't really think it's fair to anyone involved.
Yeah, it's all very bizarre. Dan, Jeremy Pruitt, former Tennessee head coach, his lawyer came out this week, basically threatened to go scorched earth on Tennessee, said they've got info that'll make them look bad, all this other stuff. Your thoughts on Jeremy Pruitt and a lawsuit against the Tennessee Volunteers?
So I guess let's hit Pruitt first, right? Pruitt went 16-19 with UT. It's one of the worst. We'll say the SEC's version of UT, not the Big 12 version
right.
of UT. But yeah, it was a really low mark historically for the program, and he gets fired. There's some allegations that potentially level 1, level 2 violations were likely to result. Underneath Jeremy, I apologize. My dog is making a cameo.
Oh, that's fine. What's the name of the dog?
I guess that's more important. The dog is named Harper.
Okay. All right. Good. That's an interesting, unique name.
Yeah, so I guess the long and short, there is 34 cause provisions to fire Jeremy Pruitt for cause. And one of them is that if there was likely to result in level 1 or level 2 violations, you could fire him, right? Or even just if the employees underneath you were running amok, that was cause for firing. So whoever drafted the contract in the first place really made it easy for Tennessee to fire him for cause. And, I think they're probably met here. And if they're not, Jeremy Pruitt's lawyer is making, we'll say, an odd strategy. He's going, and as you guys point out, he wrote a lawyer letter to UT to essentially say, if you don't settle with us now, not only are we going to sue you, but the allegations that we're going to bring against you will cripple UT, will cripple the program. We're going to bring in the basketball coach. We're going to bring in Phil Fulmer, the former coach with Peyton Manning's team back in the day. We're going to subpoena, donors and former players. It just seems very odd, right? He's coming with a lot of threats and not a lot of substance as to why Pruitt was not fired for cause, which it seems like there was cause here. So, yeah, very odd, but it's $12.6 million on the line. And I don't think Pruitt's going to ever coach again in the college ranks. So maybe he's scratching and clawing for any buck he can get at this point.
Hey, Dan, thank you. Guys, anything else?
Dan, you're not lacking in stories these days, are you, man?
It's constant.
Yeah.
I have one more.
I'll give you guys. Oh, go ahead.
I have one more. Nick Rolovich is going to obviously bring a suit on being sued because his state had a vaccine mandate. He's the highest paid employee in the state. He got fired because he didn't comply with that vaccine mandate. And without getting in the weeds about his exemption and all that, how curiously are you watching this? Because I'm sure there's going to be a great many vaccine mandate lawsuits coming in the coming year.
Right. I mean, just on its face, right? Rolovich signed a contract that required him to comply with university rules and state law, right? You have to have your coach complying with state law. He can't be doing things illegal without fear. I mean, this happens to be a vaccine mandate, which when Rolovich signed the contract, I don't imagine he thought we were going to have a pandemic with a vaccine mandate passed. But, be it as it may, that's what the Washington State's saying, that he was fired because he didn't comply with a law. And not to get into the, religious exemption and whatnot, but that's his argument. He's saying this is a pretext to fire me because you didn't agree with my religious belief. So, yeah, I'm either way, right? Whatever side of this lawsuit you fall into, it's not going to be the first of these, and certainly, it's not the last. But yeah, we're seeing these lawsuits pop up across, municipalities, police officers, airlines. So it's the first one to really hit college sports. So I'm excited to see it in that sense.
Dan, as always, thank you. Appreciate that. Greg?
Dan, looks like there might be a big story coming out of the NBA. Is that correct in regards to the Phoenix Suns?
There you go.
That's what I was about to tell you. A Donald Sterling-esque situation looks like it's about to break with the Phoenix Suns. The owner might have been caught saying something. We'll see. The reports are all preliminary, but some really big sources behind it. So we'll see what comes of it. Robert Sarver over in Phoenix.
Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. That's Dan Lust, Sports Law Lust on Twitter. I didn't know that, Craig. I guess that's been popping. I don't have anything in front of me.
Jordan Schultz reporting that breaking the NBA is preparing for a massive story accusing Suns owner Robert Sarver of racism, sexism, and sexual harassment in a series of incidents, sources say. With enough evidence to support such claims, there's a real chance the league would forcibly remove Sarver. So
I got a question for you guys, and I don't know if this is illegal. It probably is. I should have asked him this, but we're up. No, we could have. Ben Simmons, we know he struggled in the postseason, and we know at times he's struggled, but he's using this mental health thing, right? Now, it's hard to have an opinion on that because you never know if it's true. It's true. You got to almost give them the benefit of the doubt. But he's using this now as a reason why he doesn't want to play.
I think the reason not to believe Ben Sims is he's had several different reasons. I'm mad at Daryl Morey. I'm mad at Joel Embiid. My back hurts today. I don't want to do this drill. And now you're on to, now it's mental health. Well, I mean, actually, that actually would have been the best excuse that would explain all the rest of this stuff that he's having emotional issues.
And this is an insult to those who have mental health. Yeah. If you're using that as a reason, if it's not.
Now, the bigger issue here is, why are the Sixers trying to shove him back in when he clearly does not want to be there?
His teammates don't want him.
His teammates don't want him.
He's 25. He's very talented, but he also has some quirks and stuff. He's nearing $2 million in fines for missing games, practices, and meetings. There was a meeting this morning. I have not read up on it, whatever was said, even if they've released anything about what was said. But now you're going to claim that. See, that's a concern of mine, that this is now going to be a default. Well, I have mental health, and that's not fair to those who actually battle that.
Yeah, no, I mean, mental health is really a big deal, and I think that it has gotten a more positive spotlight, especially over the last couple of years. But I also think what it's done is it's created like a whole industry now that, you know, is mental health related, which in some cases can be good. But I do think it's led to just numbers of people just citing mental health at every wrong turn, or you know, at every opportunity. And there are lots and lots and lots of people that truly do deal with it on a daily basis. There are people that are clinically depressed. There are people who are bipolar, or whatever the case may be. And then there's other people that just have tough days. And I think that a lot of people who maybe don't have problems as big as they are just chalk it up to mental health now, rather than, you know, I had a bad day, or just bad week, or whatever. It's mental health. And so I don't know. I can't sit there and say that he doesn't have those issues. I'm not Ben Simmons. That would be wrong of me to say that he does not. But based on his history, yes, it's very curious that that's now suddenly something, unless it's been stated before and I just haven't seen it. But, I mean, one thing after another with this guy, and all of a sudden he needs a mental health break. Well, what was this entire, like, offseason for? Like, you know, I don't know. Ben Simmons is just he's an interesting dude. I don't know what to make of him. But if he does have mental health issues, then I hope he gets those corrected. If not, and he's using it as an excuse, I hope karma bites him right in the backside.
People keep saying trade him, right? Trade him. Well, again, that's kind of, are you going to trade him? He's going to, all of a sudden it's going to be voila, he's fine. But Rich Paul told the Sixers officials he wasn't mentally ready to play his client Ben Simmons, and the message that Simmons relayed directly on Friday morning when they had the meeting. Meanwhile, Daryl Morey, remember him? Daryl Morey reiterated the team wouldn't be rushed into trading him. People should buckle in. This is going to take a long time.
Yeah. Well,
and he's missing tonight's game as well.
Yeah. Rich Paul, by the way, is Adele's boyfriend now, and which I thought was one of the most interesting celebrity couples I've ever seen. But I think this about Ben Simmons. Look, if you were just trying to play cards and to find which way the Sixers wouldn't make you show up to work, that's pretty shameful. And the Sixers need to trade him. But this thing is probably going to get uglier before it gets resolved.
Yeah. I mean, it's you know, they haven't treated him completely well either. At the same time, he hasn't been treated. I mean, it's been back and forth between the Sixers and Ben Simmons. So it just seems like a divorce that needs to happen. You know, like I said, if he's got mental health issues, then I hope that's genuine. And if not, then I hope karma really bites him in a bad way, because there's too many people actually dealing with those types of things to have some Yahoo use that as some lame excuse to, you know, not be criticized on SportsCenter. So if it's legit, good as far as it's legit that he's, you know, addressing it. If it's not, then yeah.
All right. Mavericks opened up last night, by the way, and got smoked by Atlanta. That's a team that was red hot last year with Young. Is that right? The young kid and others.
The young kid, Trae Young.
Yeah,
yep.
Trae Young from Oklahoma. We're going to pick games this week at some point during today's show, the Big 12 games and the top 25 games. The top 25 games really might be boring, and the Big 12 games, you never know. They could always be a little bit dicey. We're going to hear from